All right, a very good morning to you. Welcome along wherever you're watching us on facebook.com/off the ball. You know where you're watching us because you're already watching us. But if you don't know where you can get us and you're watching us on one of those platforms, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we are also on offtheball.com for an audio-only feed. If you find that we're a bit too distracting when you're driving into traffic, you don't really want to be doing that, do you? So you can just listen to us in your earballs. John Greene, the Sunday Independent sports editor, is here. How you doing?
Morning, Ger.
Do you like these early mornings, or are they a bit of a killer?
They're a killer.
You're a night owl, I guess, as a newspaper person.
Yeah.
Were you a daily newspaper person ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I started in the national papers, started in daily. Yeah. So that was very much night work.
That ruined your circadian rhythms for life. You can never get them back.
I'm last up every morning in our house.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So thanks very much. We really appreciate the sacrifice that you've made today. That's what this is all about, isn't it? Sacrifices.
Love of the game.
Yeah, exactly. We've loads of stuff to talk about on the show today. We're going to get into the various rumours circulating about Irish players who may or may not be about to sign for a big French club or a big English club. CJ Standers, the latest name mentioned in dispatches today. Gavin Cumsky has that story in the Irish Times. We're also going to get into the meat and drink of the club versus county row. It's that time of the year where the proper focus comes on that kind of stuff. Really some interesting stuff coming from Kilmurray Bricken in Clare, comparing and contrasting with some of the stuff that Joe Brawley was writing about in the Sunday Independent at the weekend. We'll get into that a little bit later on as well. And some good stuff coming your way from the newspapers today. We're going to talk about all of that stuff, and we might actually just get started now with some Dana White. Conor McGregor is obviously the biggest superstar that the UFC have ever had. He was involved in an incident at Bellator recently. Dana White, this is the first time that he's actually had any kind of round table or any kind of media opportunities since that happened, and it's also the first time that he's faced the media since some suggestions that McGregor was involved in a pub brawl have begun to circulate amongst the media in Ireland. So here he is answering some of those questions yesterday.
About what happened with Conor, or allegedly happened in Ireland with hitting a mob guy?
No, but I don't think it's true, because if it was true, it'd be big. Conor can friggin', Conor can walk down the street and it's big news now. If this was true, I just have to believe it would be off the charts crazy.
Did you call him or call Audie or anybody at all to find out about that?
No. If it's true, we'll end up finding out. I can't chase all these things around. If they're true, we'll get it figured out and we'll go from there.
Does it concern you, though, you had a history with wise guys back in Boston.
Yeah.
The fact that allegedly one of the guys he had was in the mob. If that's true, that's probably not a very good thing for Conor, right? And
it can't be. It can't be a good thing for Conor.
Well, can you?
But you never know. I don't know how that stuff works among. I didn't know any of those guys or any of that stuff, but I'm sure it can be worked out too. Jake LaMotta's brother beat the shit out of a wise guy too, and they figured it out.
I was going to say, the one, we don't know about that one yet. The one we do know about, we haven't heard you guys talk about or often comment on, was the issue in Bellator where he jumped the cage, pushed the referee, slapped the Bellator employee that was trying to get him off the cage. I mean, can you give us an update on just kind of where his head is, where you guys stand? I mean, is he going to face any punishment for that? Because, it seems like pretty inexcusable behavior.
Listen, the punishment, he was being dealt with by the head of the ABC. And we were going to fight him, regardless of what Audie says. We were working on a fight for him at the end of the year. And he's just not ready. Listen, we're still in that. Conor might never fight again. Guy's got a fucking $100 million. And the other thing with the Bellator thing, he's a young, rich kid who is a god in Ireland. That's not the healthiest environment either. It's all part of. I don't know if you guys remember in the very beginning with John Jones. There's no doubt the talent was there. I used to go, the guy's talented, but he's young and he's rich and he's the king of the world right now. Hopefully he can keep it together, and that was way before any of the crazy shit started happening. And there it is. It happens.
So Conor's behavior
and what's weird is it happens more in this sport, in fighting, in the fighting business, than it does in any other sport.
You used the phrase Klingons with him at that press conference. I remember you saying that.
Klingons are the ones that drag you down.
And so the question with Conor is, it doesn't seem to be Klingons so much as Conor himself.
Conor's got a lot too. when he travels, he's got friggin' people for days with him, you know? And when you make that kind of money, you're that famous, and you're a professional athlete, you're going to have an overload of Klingons. And, yeah.
Yeah, so some thoughtful stuff from Dana White? I mean, I've never really thought of Dana White as a thoughtful person before coming out yesterday. What we definitely can talk about is what happened in Bellator in the 3 Arena when he jumps the cage. He's confirming there that McGregor has lost a fight as a result of that at the end of the year. Now, he says he's lost a fight at the end of the year, but we're still in that stage where we don't know if he's ever going to fight again because he's made 100 million quid. Yeah,
it's look, you have to take with a pinch of salt what Dana White says, as we always do. The whole thing is very strange. I thought with the Bellator thing that it was possibly sort of the behaviour of somebody who just needed a fight to get a focus. I didn't realise at the time that he had a fight lined up and that's gone now. So you feel with him that whatever's bristling beneath the surface on this story, and I think there's more to come on it over the next few days, he probably needs to get back into the UFC, sit down with Dana White, find out what's going on, and get a plan for 2018 and get it fairly quickly, I think.
Yeah, and make a business plan that is actually about going back to work as opposed to hanging around. And the Klingons that got mentioned there.
I don't think any of us think that he's not going to fight again.
It's hard to know, isn't it? Like,
what is he, 29, is he?
Well, you remember those footballers who tell you the stories about they sign their first youth team deal and then they get a proper contract and they go to the cash machine and they're like, whoa, I am rich. Yeah. And at that point it's kind of hard for them to get the motivation. He must be looking at the various pots of wealth just piling up going, what the hell do I do now?
So in terms of motivation, there's a thing there for me. Yeah, I think just looking at him, he's a fighter, that's what he's always been. Yeah. So for his headspace, you would think that getting back in the cage pretty soon is the best thing for him.
Yeah. All right, coming up a little bit later on, we're going to speak with Eric Donovan, who is also fighting this weekend for nothing like the amount of money that Conor McGregor has made. He's going to join us in the studio. Andy Lee is his corner man. He was talking on the radio show about that last night. We went and filmed them together a little bit. That moment where Andy Lee wraps Eric Donovan's hands, it's that kind of relationship between a boxer and their corner man. I don't know, it's one of the things in sport that I'm always like, this is interesting to see. You get to actually understand what that dynamic is like. So that's coming up around about 8:30. And also Paul Flynn and Aidan O'Shea joined us in studio for a chat about the Dublin-Mayo rivalry. That's coming your way after 8 o'clock. We want to talk about this though. This is the Kilmurray Bricken manager speaking on Clare FM about the difficulties that Kilmurray Bricken have with the Clare County Board and with the whole role that club football and inter-county football, that relationship and how they play or don't play together. Have a listen.
Yeah, look, we're here in the heart of West Clare trying to keep a club alive, and we have a county board that is not helping out in any way, calling off matches and not allowing walkovers without county players. And we're in a position that we're not going to play in the future. Our club won't play in the future, and I should hope other clubs will not go down the road of making the QC Cup like the John Gorman Cup, a meaningless competition. And we have only basically 2 competitions at this point in time, and we have great respect because of our record in the QC Cup that we are one of the teams that give it 100% respect. But I think the county board is not giving us that respect, and I think the other clubs now need to stand up, especially these clubs that took walkovers and went off and kept their head in the sand. And it's a short-term goal for a long-term loss, because the club football is going to die in Clare if the QC Cup is allowed to go down the road of the Clare Cup. And it's become a habit now that the Clare Cup play without their county players. We're not willing to go down that road.
Kilmurray Bricken will have their opportunity to state that next Thursday night, I guess Thursday night meeting, structures meeting. Well, Kilmurray will be in and voicing their opinions.
Yeah, look, we will, and at the end of the day, we'll take control of our players from now on. And if our players are not available, they will be available full time to us from now on. And somebody better make structures that suit that, because we're not allowed. We'll withdraw our players from the county if they're not allowed the QC Cup for us.
That's Aidan Maloney. Just in case anybody doesn't know, I had to look it up. The QC Cup is the league. It's
the second competition in Clare.
Yeah, so it's not the championship, it's the league. No. And they're saying we want our players from that game, and the other clubs who had allowed walkovers or took walkovers are actually playing the short game to have a win this week against one of their rivals, as opposed to seeing the long game. And the long game is that the county game is coming at the expense of the club teams. That's his case.
Yeah, the bigger picture is, it's all over the papers today. The Club Players Association were out again yesterday, ahead of county conventions around the country, with some motions that they'd like to have brought forward. So it's in that context that this is coming. And the big picture for what he's talking about is league and championship are separated in most counties, and we have starred systems in most counties whereby if you have a county player, they're available for X number of league games and all your championship games in theory. And what's been happening more and more is that county managers have been reneging on the deal and pulling starred players from league matches. So let's say you have 15 league matches in a season, well then you can have your county players for 8 of them or 9 of them, and what's been happening is that deal has been reneged upon. And you can hear the frustration in his voice. They obviously were at the wrong end of a few calls down there this year. It's happened in other counties as well. I know it happened in Meath as well, where starred players were, pulled at the last second for various different reasons. We're getting to a point where it's getting very close to the point of no return. And
explain that, right? Because, ultimately, what he's talking about is not releasing players to the county. We've never heard anybody say that before.
No.
It's as hardcore a statement as I've ever heard a club manager make.
Yeah, it's probably something that's been said in a pub on Sunday night. I'm sick of this, and the county lads aren't going into the county anymore. But now we've got a guy who's gone on his local radio station and said that, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. How he'd enforce that, I don't know, because how you say to a young fella, you're not going into into play with Clare, is going to be difficult. But I think it's more the point of the level of frustration that he reached as a manager this year of his club team, particularly in a place probably where, in the west of Ireland, where clubs are struggling more so than they are on the east coast.
Yeah, he's talking about going into county convention and having that conversation, and that's really where some of this actually has to play out, where you would hope that the county boards are...
Have you been to a county convention?
Well, I haven't.
I have.
I remember...
and good luck with that.
I remember as a kid reading the notes that my dad would bring back from them and being like, holy moly, this sounds weird.
Yeah. I'll be at one next week, and it can be grim, and that's part of the problem now when you see around the country and you look at county boards. The lack of vision and dynamism in county boards is part of the problem here.
Where does it go? So you said that so the clubs are feeling this is a breaking point. The counties, in Brawley's piece at the weekend, he had an unnamed inter-county manager who was saying to fringe players, you can't play for your club in league matches. You're going to sit on the bench for 3 years. You can't play universities.
I think he said you can't play for your club. You can't train for your club. I can't guarantee that you're going to get any football with my team for a couple of years, but if you want to make it, this is what you have to do. So no college football, no club football, no college training, no club training. So, is what Aidan Maloney is saying in Clare any more hardcore than that? It's just, it's...
Rock and a hard place though, right?
It's rutting stags now, and you would be worried. You'd be worried, are we heading for... Are the paths diverging to the point where they won't be able to rejoin?
As in there'll be a split.
Yeah. That
some kind of semi-professionalism happens, the inter-county game, and those players are kept away. The solution is to have those windows that the CPA are talking about and rigorously enforce them, to have some kind of system whereby the individual players or some organisation is charged with auditing that, and whenever there's a breach, a county gets thrown out of the championship or something.
Which won't happen, but
that's the only way it could happen.
We're talking about this new season next year, and April being freed up in the master plan for clubs. That is not going to happen.
All right, let's take you to the newspaper headlines today. It's a busy day with a lot of different stories on the back pages. We're going to start with the Irish Independent. Van Graan prepared to fight to keep O'Mahony. A difficult opening press conference for the new Munster head coach, who was suddenly facing questions about Peter O'Mahony, and the next time they meet he's going to be facing questions about CJ Stander as well. That story's coming up in the Irish Times. Dundalk deal with new American owners nears completion, so an injection of cash for Dundalk perhaps. Next to the Times, more about Van Graan and bid to retain O'Mahony, and Allardyce set for Everton job today. That's the back of the Irish edition of the London Times. To the Irish Examiner, maybe you might just hold up the front cover for me there, John, the Examiner. Can I grab it? What's the the lead story? Sorry, I didn't have that.
It's Johan van Gran as well, and then Peter Mahoney inside.
Okay, so on to the Irish Times. And the Irish Times is mostly about football, so that's their kind of result pages there. Their main stories inside is this CJ Stander could join O'Mahony in leaving Munster. It's a Gavin Comiskey story, and it's a bit of a doozy. He lists off the players who are out of contract this summer: Peter O'Mahony, Jared Payne, Rob Kearney, Rory Best, Tommy Bowe, Ian Henderson, Tyke Furlong, Gary Ringrose, CJ Stander and Andrew Conway. And last night when the lads were talking about this on the radio, I had a text from an agent who was like, why does nobody ever talk about the fact that the IRFU offer these players not enough money? It's always the players who are at issue here. And the IRFU have managed this pretty well in that they're one of the wealthiest sports organisations in this country. They're going to own the Aviva outright again in a couple of years' time. That'll be debt-free for them. They can easily tap into corporate Ireland in a way that some of the other sports can't, and yet they always manage to plead the poor mouth when it comes to paying the players who make them all the money. Yeah,
it's an Irish talent, isn't it? I think the noises coming are different this time, aren't they? I mean, it's before when we heard this, it was, oh, you know, I'm going to go to France if you don't pay me, and then you got your deal and everything was rosy in the garden, but Zibo's gone, and you know, the French clubs are looking at the Irish pool of players and the strength and depth that we have, and saying, well, this place is ripe for picking. They've got money like we can't believe. I don't think even saying that the IRFU could afford to keep some of these players, I don't think anyone thinks that they can match what the French clubs are offering. Yeah, so Peter Mahoney obviously would be a massive loss to Munster. He's kind of one of those talismanic figures who comes through, has that identity with the crowd, is the epitome of what Munster rugby is. CJ Stander is a project player who they've invested so much time and effort and emotion into, who looks world class. If you were suddenly to take O'Mahony and Stander out of Munster, they'd be screwed. But take them out of Ireland, and for all our storied depth in the back row, it's like, uh-oh. Yeah, and with Heaslip as well, you know, reaching the end of his career and talk that he might possibly consider, you know, finishing his career elsewhere as well. You wonder who's the player who's going to be the one that's the IRFU say no, or Joe Smith says no, we let him go to France, but he still plays for Ireland. Yeah. Who's going to be that player? Yeah. It's not Simon Zebo, but... No, it's Conor Murray, and that's it. That's the short list of one, I think, because Sexton's not going to go back at this stage. And you don't even think O'Mahony would... You think he'd be... Don't think he's going to make a special case for O'Mahony. Maybe if O'Mahony and Stander goes, they suddenly have to reconsider. Like, if the floodgates do open to the point where you're like, okay... But then, long term, Tyke Furlong has to be one of the most attractive Irish players to a French club that there is. So, I mean, that's a great list, and it's a worrying list for Irish rugby. Yeah, I mean, if you're Tyke Furlong, you're his agent, you're wandering in there going, all right, so everybody's thinking about going, you know? Like Furlong's borderline world superstar, you know? Yeah, and the marketing that they're going to get out of having him involved, and the fact that he can spread the gospel of rugby to an entire new area again, and they can capitalise on the kind of impetus that they have off Sean O'Brien. Like, it's a dream. So you hope that some package is put together for all of those guys. We should talk about an amazing achievement from the Irish women's football team last night, a 0-0 draw in Holland against the European champions. The Dutch heavily favoured going into that game. They'd won all their games. We'd won all their games too, in fairness. So that was streamed live on Facebook last night and also live on Air Sport. So we're beginning to see the start of proper coverage of the women's football team. Yeah, and you feel that this might be their, you know, this might be their moment. You know, when the Irish women's rugby team beat the All Blacks, that was, you know, that was their moment, and that's when they came into our consciousness. And after last night and the reaction to it, this could be their moment. And you know, it's only 6 months, isn't it, since they famously went toe to toe against the FAI. Yeah. And it's obviously brought them together. They were missing 6 or 7 key players last night and still pulled off a result that nobody thought they could pull off. And apparently there was a stonewall penalty to the Dutch in the last couple of minutes. So, you know, these things, it's good to be lucky for a change. Yeah, to be on the other end of that. You know, they've earned their luck, haven't they? Yeah, no, for sure. All right, if you want to get in touch with us, you can tweet us here at Off the Ball, or on facebook.com/Off the Ball. We can run you through some of the front pages of the newspapers. Kinahan mob threatened pub punch sports star. This is a hooded individual, obviously a stock photo. Pay us 900 grand or else. Gang demand compo for brawl. That's the front of the Sun. And in the Herald,
It says, McGregor's pub brawl backlash. UFC star Conor McGregor made a bizarre display of defiance after being linked to a Dublin pub brawl. This is his Instagram post yesterday, where he is hooded and who knows exactly what the crack is. He tagged it the celebrity. I think maybe you're all smart enough out there to work things out for yourselves. That is the back of that. And the Irish News, we just want to bring in the Irish News, their back page today is that story about the CPA wanting an even tighter time frame. So that would be honing off the month of April and saying that you can't do inter-county training for that month.
And they also want to change the time frame for the Super 8s to bring it forward by 3 weeks so that it will be finished in early July as opposed to early August.
Okay. And the difference, that would bring forward the All-Ireland finals to early August. Is it?
I think they'd leave the All-Ireland finals pretty intact. What they're trying to do then, there would be a window for club championships to be played.
In the other counties?
And I think the ambition would be that the All-Ireland club finals would be played in the same calendar year, so that they wouldn't be played on St. Patrick's Day.
I mean, that was like a couple of years ago proposal that seemed to just fallen off the table once the Super 8s was getting sorted out.
It's a bit like the Under-21 Championship being ditched this year. It took 10 years since it was first mooted for that to be changed.
Yeah.
I don't think that the proposal to change the club championships to a calendar year has gone away. I just think it's
other priorities,
and they're trying to get the pieces of the jigsaw in place.
Okay, all right, let's move on, because Aidan O'Shea and Paul Flynn popped into studio for us yesterday. Coca-Cola are proud to support Irish road safety by rewarding designated drivers who give the gift of a lift with 2 free drinks from Coca-Cola. For more details and to claim your free drinks, get on to designateddriver.ie or search for the hashtag designateddriver on Twitter. Aidan O'Shea and Paul Flynn are both ambassadors for the campaign, and they called into us yesterday. All right, as part of their designated driver course, Coca-Cola have launched a new initiative, and they've got 2 brilliant spokespeople to talk to us today. We don't need to talk about that because they can get the supers up to tell us all the details of it, but I like Coca-Cola. It's a great drink, eh?
Agreed.
Okay, we've done that bit. It's over. You two have done loads of work together in the past, because obviously you're both ambassadors for AIB. You played football for Ireland. How do you pretend that you don't hate each other when you're in each other's company, given that Mayo and Dublin are supposed to hate each other so much?
I think it's a bit overstated in terms of hate each other. I think...
severe dislike.
Well, like,
where on the scale is it?
No, I think, look, we've had, I suppose, familiarity breeds contempt a little bit, and we've probably been, probably their closest rivals over the last 4 or 5 years. So, we go at it over the summer, and then I suppose it's over, and we bump into each other, we go into each other, and I've come across Paul, obviously, as you say, through different things, and we meet each other out at different events, or the Irish team, or Ulster holidays and stuff like that, so ours is fine. Does
it make it harder then when you're actually up against each other and you kind of have to, because we know the game is intensely physical and you need to bring that physicality, otherwise you're not going to be able to win, when you do get to know people, or do you try and keep them at arm's length now, knowing full well that in 5 years' time you'll actually you'll have shared a lot that other people won't ever have shared and don't really know about?
No, I think it's pretty easy. I think like, we are hugely competitive in terms of wanting to win. So they're the standard bearers, and we're trying to knock them off. So when we play football against each other for 70 minutes, it's not too hard. We both want to do. They have a goal, we have a goal, and we just go at it. So when it's over, it's over. I'm sure in times we'll probably reflect on what's been kind of a very competitive last 4 or 5 years against each other. Obviously, have picked up all the medals, so at the moment we're still trailing behind.
Those All-Star trips, is it automatic that everybody just blends together and gets on with it, or do they tend to be a little bit cliquish?
I wouldn't say cliquish. I'd say people go to hang about with the lads that they kind of know and they're friendly with.
There's always lots of Dubs and there's always lots of Mayo lads. So naturally enough, they're 2 big groups.
But we'd well be I remember 2014 we were in Boston and we had some serious crack with the Mayo boys and the Kerry lads, and anyone else was there. It was just, but back to your initial point, there's a massive amount of respect between the different groups, and if Dublin lads face off against one another in a club county championship game, they'll go toe to toe when you cross that white line. But there's a respect there that is underlying, and it's the foundation of it all, because no matter what team you play against, but especially when you go to war against a team time and time again, you're going to have a massive respect for them. So yes, there is a rivalry, and I lived with Michael Murphy in college, and there was a rivalry but at the same time, massive friendship and massive respect. So you can kind of definitely cross the two lines there for sure.
When did that rivalry start meaning something to you? When did you kind of start realising actually this is when the history of my time as a footballer comes to be written? There's going to be a big chapter about this particular rivalry.
Like with the rivalry with Mayo, yeah. Like I suppose it's just because of the fact that every year we've had such titanic battles. Like I've gone on the record before saying, I remember in 2013 walking off the pitch in that final, and like we had a dressing room full of wounded soldiers, and like I'm sure they had too. And I remember walking off, and I felt I couldn't even enjoy a drink. I was that drained, and that's what happens when you play against Mayo. They put you to the pin of your collar, like with like an intensity and physicality that if you don't match it, you know, they'll walk all over you. And so every time you go up against that and you're pushed to that kind of breaking point, you're obviously gonna like respect the team, and if you can come out of that battle, you know, and you've won, you know, you obviously kind of you're very happy.
Yeah, because you won the first Mayo Dublin game of this kind of two teams existence in the All-Ireland semi-final that year in 2012.
Yeah.
And like I guess from that point forward there's always going to be a massive rivalry, because that Dublin team are reborn that next season. It's Jim Gavin's first year the next year. Like, are you aware of the fact that it is the rivalry that will come to define your Mayo team, or does that matter in any way, that like these games, they have to mean more to you than like a second round qualifier, for example?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's the games against them have kind of taken on a life of their own over the last couple of years, and I suppose every kind of generation has that kind of one or two teams that you had Tyrone and Kerry, and that's kind of we've probably taken on that mantle. But for me, it's a bit like for us, it's a bit different, because you know they're talking about a rivalry, but they've won all the Irelands and we haven't. So we understand that we've been the ones, as I say, that have probably put them closest over the last couple of years. But you know, it's much easier sitting on the one side of the fence when you've won the All-Ireland medals, and we're the ones just trying to get over the line. So we're very much aware of it, I suppose. But you know, in the moment we're you know, going into next year, you know, it's Dublin, Mayo, and then there's a couple of teams but Dublin seems to be able to steamroll everybody else. We don't seem to be able to do that, so we are very much aware that we need to be able to tick all those boxes along the way to try and get back to them.
Yeah, I'll talk about the steamrolling in a minute, but it's a fair point. What is it about those games? Like, what is it about the physicality of those games that leaves everybody feeling so knackered, like, and that you don't have that feeling? What is the nature of that Mayo challenge? It's not just the physical nature of the challenges, is it? Or is that the thing that separates them?
Well, the way they play, you know, is very much a man-to-man type game. They play a running game themselves, so every time they get the ball, no matter what position you're playing as a forward, you're going to be on the back foot, you're going to have the tag runners, or else they're going to create an overlap. When you get the ball, they're in your face, right up from inside your own 14-metre line, right through each one of the lines. So if you get a short kick out off, you got to work through 6 or 7 lines of intensity and defence from them. So, you know, that like drains you. You know, there's not a second of the game like that there's a break in play. You know, you don't get possession and you can kind of hold on to it for a minute or two and gather your thoughts. Like, it's relentless. It's nearly like a game of tennis as opposed to a game of football, because there's always a lot of turnovers. It's end to end. And that's what makes it so exciting for the fans to watch, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas we could walk out of a game of Mayo and feel we didn't play well, and everyone thinks it's the best game they've seen in years, you know, that kind of way. Like, so it's not always the prettiest of football, but it's just the level of, you know, intensity and end-to-end excitement that kind of, I suppose, encapsulates people, but also kind of leaves you at the end of it feeling like, you know, you're wasted, you know.
At some point in the middle of these games, have you ever thought, yeah, this is the one where we're going to get over the line here, or?
No, yeah, it's like Paul said, like they are kind of to and fro and back and forth. They're like, I think it's one of the things is the style that both teams plays into them being kind of enthralling games where they're end to end, their scores. I think this year personally, I felt for the first time, and probably because we got them to kick the ball for longer periods and we had success around the middle, we kind of felt, I personally felt within the game we were in control for long stretches. Now, we never pulled away or anything like that, but in previous games I kind of felt we were hanging on a little bit more, whereas this time I felt we were a little bit more in the game. And in fairness to them, they took control right at the very key moment of the game in the last 6 or 7 minutes. We lost that kind of momentum or that control that we had, I thought, and they're so finely balanced that like it's only ever been a point or two between us, and that those things you know, I say a little bit more control this time. We still only lost by a point. You know, in other games where I felt we were losing away, we still lost by a point. So it's hard to really kind of to gauge.
Yeah. What are they like playing for you? How do you feel the ebb and flow of them goes?
I think I kind of alluded to it. Like, you know, it's you never feel like they're buried. Anyway, that's one thing. Like, you know, I remember like sorry, I'll make sure I get this right, but I think it's the replay last year. We went 4 up, and we felt like, yeah, right, this is like we could actually kind of put together a few scores, and then out of nowhere, like they're back into it, you know, and that's just the kind of nature of it. It's never like, I wouldn't say in many of them there's been more of a 4-point gap, maybe a 5-point gap in one of them, and we let it slip, or they let it slip. Like it's just there's a couple of aspects to it. There's one, there's very skillful footballers in the show, but there's two, there's like characters within both teams that really just never say die, you know, and that's probably what's made the games be kind of the exciting games that they've been, but also it's going to build this kind of bit of like, you know, as just a life of its own, you know.
Do you feel alive in the middle of them?
You feel alive in the middle of them, but you definitely feel dead at the end of them, that's for sure, like, you know. But you feel like, for me, that's the white heat of like intensity that like makes me get up out of bed and train at 6 o'clock in the morning, like.
Because you can practice, like I know everybody tries to practice and make it seem as real as possible, and that's the whole point of good quality practice, that the All Blacks have kind of got that whole thing. But you can't fake that. You can't fake the games on the line. The team are just as good as this. It's going to the last minute, no matter what happens here. That's what you got to benchmark yourself against, and it's very hard to replicate. And I think it's the thing you'll miss when you're gone, when you finish playing football, is that like you can look on at everything, like, but that battle, when you see that battle taking place, like I can't deal with watching that. I need to be in the middle of that, like, you know. And that's kind of what it is when we play against one another. So very hard to replicate. Even in training games, they can be intense, they can be hard hitting, but that's hard to replicate. Now Mayo tried to replicate it almost every week this year in the qualifiers. Like
different levels, yeah.
You desperately tried to make everybody think, Jesus, maybe this is the week that they're going to go out. So you obviously kind of can replicate that feeling a little bit of like it being on the edge.
On the line, yeah. Yeah, not at the same kind of intensity. I mean, we've probably played in some of the games, like we put ourselves in good positions and just let teams right back into them. For the life of me, I don't know why we do it, and give everybody a bit of a heart attack. But yeah, no, for sure we could have gone out to Derry the first day out. James Keelan is free, and honestly I thought he was going to kick it. Drops it short. The Cork game, they came back with 2 goals down the stretch and beat them in extra time. So Roscommon, they had possession for about 90 seconds going down in the drawing game, like, and you know, there's no reason why they couldn't have scored that day. So I don't know what the reason for it is. We just seem to play a lot better, more consistent when it's required. In the All-Ireland finals though, like even now in retrospect, you don't have a medal at the end of it. Can you look back and go, this is the time of my life, these minutes, these games, like, is that possible for you? Because like most of us are never going to get that experience of actually knowing that we can influence this thing, and you know, it's there for us. Yeah. No, I think this final, I think when we look back, and I watched it, I think the Wednesday after the game, and you know, when you lose by a point, you know, you're always looking for every little ball, every breaking ball, every hand pass, kick pass. You know, when you're winning by a point, you don't look at that. But like, I remember watching my brother, and he was like, you know, oh, we could have done that. Look, that pass or whatever. And I'm like, Shamey, we're actually doing like so many things well here. Like, you got to kind of understand and appreciate that we're doing so many things well. And like, I think our conversion rate was higher than, you know, we've ever had it. You know, our kickouts went really well. But we just, you know, you have to sometimes accept, like, you know, Dublin were just that little bit better than us on the day. They were just a little bit above in their conversion rate, or, you know, and some of those stats that, you know, if you told me before the game, you're going to, these are what you're going to hit, I'd be like, yeah, we'll win the game if we do that. And like, it's just, you know, sometimes you have to just kind of accept and hold your hands up and say, we played a really, really good game. It just wasn't good enough on the day. Yeah. Paul, you had a kind of a difficult enough couple of seasons really with injury over the last couple of years. How are you now, and what's your kind of long-term prognosis? No, like, I actually, this year I just had a pull my calf. Like, actually, I was in great nick in regards to, like, I had a chronic injury for the last number of years, which is your groin, which I don't think there's a player, you know, Aidan's had anyway, or your hip. Like, it's just a common injury, so I'm not going to, like, there's no excuses. Like, everyone's dealing with little niggles, so like, that's like, I just probably wasn't playing as well over the last number of years. But this year I felt really good, and I was fresh as well, and you know, but I pulled my calf the week before the championship, first game against Carlow. Great timing. And I was going to start that day. I'd say I was playing well in the latter stage of the league and in the build up to championship, and then
on my way back, I pulled it over 4 weeks. It's a tricky little injury, and I pulled it again on the way back. So I was there for 10 weeks with what, you know, it was a nothing injury, you know, that kind of way. So that was just a bit of a freak. But I suppose maybe, I don't know, like, but when you kind of come over that 30-year-old barrier, you maybe pick up these little things a little bit more often. I don't know, but hopefully now I can I've had a good rest. Club football's finished first week in October. So I'm actually mad for road now. Like, I'm just mad to get back into the swing of things early and get a good run the league and build up to match fitness. Do you feel now like you need an individualised training program because you are at that stage of your career, and like, you know, your athleticism was one of the things that defined who you were as a footballer. It kind of was the prototype for that role that a lot of people try and reach but are never going to reach because they don't have your athleticism. So, like, is there a natural wear and tear at the end of your career to pay the balance of what you've already used, that you now desperately need to manage that properly? Or do you think you can still train the way you did when you were 24, 25? Yeah, I think there's a balance. I don't think you can. I think my head says I can train the same way. I think my body's kind of slowly trying to tell me that, like, maybe you can't, you know. And I was just saying earlier on today that I read Paul O'Connell's book in the off season when I was advised to, and it's a good book to read to kind of get you to start thinking about how you kind of get the most out of yourself when you kind of come over the age of 30, you know. And it's little things like, you know, I'd be in the gym and I'm trying to lift the same weight as some of the other lads are, and then I can't get out of bed because my back is like, you know, is in a knot for two days, you know. And that's just stubbornness, and that's just trying to be that competitive person that I am. But I think you just need to pick your battles a little bit better now that you're kind of I think you can definitely do all the volume and the running, but if a coach comes up to you and says, you know, Flynn, you can sit this one out, you just take it and sit it out and don't think, you know, I can go again, you know. So O'Connell reckons that he used to get himself so emotionally charged before the match that he would go out and kill people in the first 10 or 15 minutes, and that was great, and the whole crowd responded to it and his teammates responded to it, and that was his identity. But ultimately it cost him a really serious injury profile because he was going out and doing stupid things, whereas now he kind of realises at the end of his career for the last couple of years he needs to be calm and think, and you know, it's a chess match that he's got to make his way through. Do you see a difference in your own game then for the next couple of years as well, or is it just really about the training? Your game will stay the same? Yeah, no, I think the game has to change. If you can't evolve, well then you won't survive. I think that's probably the key point I'll take out of it. I think there's an opportunity to evolve if you kind of maybe go into a midfield position. I think it's a little bit different, but and it's a lot more about kind of thinking your way around the pitch. Yes, there's obviously, you know, an intensity to it, but half forward is, I think, probably more demanding in the sense that you have to get back and you have to get forward, and you have to do it time and time again. And with half back lines, the platform for most defences in most of the top teams, like, you know, you're most of the time you're chasing back, and you're still kind of required to clip a few scores and set up the play and link the play. So in midfield, you just kind of you manage that a little bit better. So I'd like to evolve into, you know, a midfielder and, you know, really battle hard to try and make that a position for the next couple of years. So I'm hearing midfielders have it easy. That's what I'm hearing. No, it's I don't either. No, but I think there in 5 years. What is the evolution of you as a footballer? Where are you
Centre
now?
Back.
Full back, is he?
Full back. I full back. Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, it's been kind of funny when I obviously started off at midfield and then into full forward and back out to 11. So I've been there the last while. So I like playing at 11, but you know, it all depends on what the opposition throw is for us, because you know, I'm aware of what teams are trying to do to me in certain circumstances, and we need to be aware of that, not just for me but for other players. And so yeah, I'm happy where I'm at 11, but you know, I wouldn't mind playing centre back either. It would be nice. Ready to go wherever you need. You're playing basketball this winter. You got shit last year for playing basketball and doing your ankle. Everyone was like, oh, what was he doing playing basketball? But actually, it's a really good thing for you to do in the off season because it keeps you fit, right? It's not really the fitness thing that kind of drives me to do it. It's more just enjoyment and something totally different, to be honest. It's not, I don't go there, I want to stay fit because I want to play basketball. Right. It's having an exterior life. Well, I like playing. I like American sport. I love basketball as a young fella. I played it for years and played it up until I was 18 or 19 years of age. So it's, you know, it became a story that I went back playing, but it's just something natural that somebody does when they've been away from a sport they loved as a young fella. They go back and play. So it was born out of just pure, I'd like to go and play a bit of basketball again for the first time in 5 or 6 years. Yeah, but I think it probably does have an impact in like handling skills. Like it doesn't damage you in any way. No. Do you think it improves you? I'm not playing consistently enough in the winter to, I think, see a dramatic improvement.
Yeah.
But as in for an understanding of certain things as a grown up, like
coming up against a team who understand the
I would recognise some of the stuff that they do from being basketball IQ and stuff like that. So I would spot things like that. But I do think it definitely helps. Help defense, spatial awareness, all that kind of stuff. I know that you'd spot it in a basketball game, an NBA game, you spot it in, and so I've grown up with that kind of stuff, so I understand it a little bit better.
And are they the best at it at the moment?
Well, obviously.
But like you can see the concepts that they're using?
I can see some of the yeah, absolutely, yeah. So like other teams are trying to copy them, and it's very difficult to copy them because
it takes a while.
Well, not that it just takes a while, but they've got really good footballers as well. It's grand having a method or a system or a way of playing. Like if you don't have good footballers, it's going to break down eventually. So they've just got really, really good players, and they're very process driven in the way they play it.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter who it is.
You seem to like all that stuff though. Like you take on board the fact that we're trying something different here. Like the V shape against Tyrone, for example. I was like, wow, look at this. Look what they're doing. I've never seen this in a football field before.
I think it's about it's about taking little pieces of it from whatever. Basketball, rugby, soccer, like whatever, and you can take little small nuances from those games and try and make our games a little bit better. I think the day of going out and giving it socks and putting your heart and soul into it is not going to win you in All Ireland anymore. Like I think you have to think your way around the pitch, and you have to be tactically astute and be well set up and have players who can be intelligent enough to play in different positions. And not just siloed into like a half forward or a corner forward, it's very transient now. Like every position we would see is you need to be able to kick a score, you need to be able to block, you need to be able to tackle, you need to be able to defend, catch a kick out, and that's just the way the game has gone.
Yeah.
And with that, then it allows you to be a little bit more flexible about how you set up.
Yeah.
And I think I would say we do it, but I'd say if you look at teams going through the years, there's a lot of teams that have been doing it as well, So.
Aidan, obviously you're so close to that ultimate crown and title. There's no reason for us not to think that you're not going to be a better team next year, except I'll
hear you next February saying that
you're finished. Yeah, but that's what tradition decrees. It's like the team who gets closest, we write them off almost.
We'll get hammered somebody in the league, and then that. Definitely it'll be gone.
Well, you probably will get hammered with somebody. It just happens. The way the league works.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's like you guys obviously don't feel any of that. Like there's no sense that the clock is ticking. Like Andy Moran is the example to everybody. The clock is largely irrelevant if you put the work in and can remain injury free.
Yeah, I think we were very quick, especially in Gaelic football, to kind of just, well, most sports, to be honest, just somebody hits 30 and thanks very much, your time is nearly done.
He's ancient.
Yeah, so I think, look, if you're willing to prepare yourself in the right way and manage your life correctly, there's no reason why you can't play. Andy's an example of that. He's changed his life around in terms of work and his training, so he's been able to do what he's been able to do. So, but from back to your point, I think, we're as motivated as ever. Like boys are already back and ready to go. So everybody says it every year. Surely they can't come back again. Like, but I don't think that's ever been a problem for us. We're aware of where we're at in terms of our age profile, but we're also aware we've got a very good, talented group of players. So there's no point. I don't see boys walking away. Obviously, Alan retired today. So I think he'd be the only one.
Yeah.
I think the rest of the boys are very aware that there's no point hanging up the boots when you've got an opportunity to win an All-Ireland.
Yeah, Dennis Bastick has gone from you guys. It seems like he might be the only one as well of the older crew who are going. So everybody's doubling down and coming back next year. And again, that whole kind of, where does the hunger come from? It has become the identity of the group, is that they want to win things now. So motivation doesn't ever really seem to be an issue for you guys.
No, I don't think like Alan Dillon's a great example, Dennis Bastick. They're guys who I think they really appreciate wearing their county jersey and the privilege that goes with it. And I think that we'll all be the same. We'll go for as long as the body allows and as long as we're being picked, And Dennis is a great servant to the Dun jersey. He's a great leader in the dressing room, and he's one of the guys who I'd say can inspire lads to kind of realise that you don't have to be a young lad who comes through all the systems to play and to win with your county. He came into the setup quite late in his career, and lads, there are a number of lads who are over the age of 30. There's no doubt about that. But there's also now younger lads coming through. So there's going to be pressure from the top and there's going to be pressure from the bottom, like for lads who are going to want to play, and you know, so it's going to be interesting. But I think there's a competitive bunch there who still feel they have something to offer, you know. And
do you get any downtime now? Is this like a few weeks of mad crazy partying properly, and then, you know, into serious stuff for December?
Well, I'm just back from Australia, so yeah, I like to take a couple of weeks now, but I don't think there's any mad partying or anything, like, so we'll be tipping away. I'll enjoy Christmas though, and whenever Stephen says it's time to come back, it'll be time to come back.
Yeah. So I've had
there's the picture.
Bit of downtime, yeah, like picking through. We were doing a bit of work today.
Nice jumpers.
It's
Paul was supposed to bring his entry. That's why this is here.
Tactically left the home, but now there's been a nice bit of downtime now. So looking forward.
Were you on which of the junkets did you get to go on this year? Did you get to go to Boston?
I did, yeah.
Nice.
We won't call it a junket, but it was.
Now, come on, we all know what goes on.
It was a good trip. It was a good trip now, but. Settle down now. That's all done.
Well, I hope they don't work you too hard this side of Christmas. Anyway, lads, great stuff. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Fair play.
Check out designateddriver.ie for more details on that. Tom, I was talking to Aidan O'Shea there about playing basketball. There's another story in the papers today about a Dublin footballer.
Yeah, so Michael Darragh-Macaulay is going to play with Aidan UCD starting this weekend, and okay, it's not exactly a deluge of inter-county players, but that's 3 now, I think, isn't it? Kieran Donaghy, Michael Darragh and Aidan, and I think there's talk that Donny Kingston and Laois is also going to try his hand at a bit of basketball as well. It's an the parallels are interesting because, you know, for Michael Darragh, you know, he didn't have a good season. It was interrupted with injury, and he was in and out. And it's mirroring what Donaghy used to do, sort of if he didn't have a good year with Kerry and he went back to the court and kind of found himself again. Yeah. And he always seemed to come back the following season to Gaelic football a better player. Certainly their conditioning, you know, their strength, their upper body strength, their hand strength seems to improve dramatically from playing basketball. And if Kingston does take the plunge, it's interesting. These are high profile guys throwing their lot in with the National League. Yeah,
I can totally understand why Michael Darragh-Macaulay would do it. Paul Flynn there was talking about.
He plays Gaelic like a basketball,
and he loves it as well. You can, anytime you talk to him about it, his eyes light up when you talk to him about it. But Paul Flynn was talking about morphing into a midfielder full time. So that obviously Bastick is gone, but you still have. It looks like James McCarthy is a midfielder until they get McCaffrey back. Maybe he is a halfback, but there is intense competition for those midfield places. And if Michael Darragh-Macaulay wants to nail down the starting place, he's going to have to hit next year.
Plus the Dublin footballers that we don't even know about, who are just the next Conor Callaghans that are in the corner.
Yeah, whatever Wunderkind under 21s or under 20s as they are now are about to pop out. So, yeah, the other thing is that when you looked at Dublin against Tyrone, you particularly saw them line up in ways that I hadn't seen them do. They kind of unveiled their full game plan for that match. And it was clear that there was a lot of basketball concepts.
Yeah, well, I think that's, reading Jason Sherlock's book last month, he was brought in there very much with that in mind, with his basketball experience. It's a game I never played, actually, as a kid growing up, one of the ones that I didn't play, but you can see the overlaps, particularly in modern Gaelic games, with the upper body strength and the hand strength and the speed at which they like to move the ball through the hand.
I think, and the positioning on the court as well, like just kind of
the defensive strategies. Thinking about.
Yeah.
When you listen to somebody like Aidan O'Shea talk, I always think it's really interesting because sometimes we tend to be agricultural in what we think about GA and how they prepare for games. And I was listening to him last night on the show talking about, that when he landed, he tended to turn one way, and that Dublin had prepared for him in previous years about how he was turning. So just a simple thing that he had worked on this year, that his number one thing was which way he was going to turn and changing the way he would turn so that they couldn't predict which way he'd go.
Yeah, I know there's proper analysis being done.
And that's a very sort of a basketball approach to take.
Yeah, for sure. Right, Eric Donovan is going to join us in the studio in a moment, but yesterday we went to watch him train with Andy Lee, who's going to be in his corner this weekend. Have a look.
We're in Harold's Cross, whitecollarboxing.ie's gym, and we're here at Eric Donovan, one of his last sessions before he fights on Saturday, December 2nd. And we're in the tapering kind of phase now, just sharpening up. We've been working for 5 weeks, and today we'll just be drilling the things we've been working on and just hammering home through repetition. When it comes to fight time, he'll do it naturally and won't have to think about it. Eric contacted me quite some time ago now and asked, because his former coach is now the president of the Irish Amateur Boxing Association. He can no longer train Eric because Eric's a professional boxer. So Eric needed a coach, and me and Eric being friends since the year 2000, it was the first time I met him, so it's a long time ago. And so he asked me to train him. I didn't say I would coach him, just I said I'd give him a hand for this fight and see how it goes. He's coming to win.
Absolutely.
So he's coming to win. That's what I think anyway. I think he's coming to win. I don't think he's not an opponent. You know what I mean? He's not a guy who's just coming to fall over. Oh, fella's just coming for the payday. So whatever he lacks in technique, he'll make up for in determination and spirit. So you have to be ready, you know what I mean? Respect that fight, be ready, prepared for a tough fight, and be ready for 8 rounds if it has to go 8 rounds. I've been studying his opponent, I think more so than Eric has been, and I always like to study opponents. He just said he watched him once or twice, but I've watched him quite a bit now, and he's a tough guy.
It's been brilliant. It's been so educating.
Getting a fresh perspective, or
just the knowledge Andy has of the game, he's worked with the best.
I think there's a lot more to come from him. He just needs to keep working and improving. Well, you're just trying to break down the habits of years of amateur boxing. It can be quite hard to get through, especially the fact that Eric started later. He's 31 years old now, so he's going to have to learn very quickly. He's not going to have the luxury of 15, 16 fights where he can adjust and take the time, those 2 years, 3 years in the gym, and learn his trade or his craft. But luckily, I've had the experience, and me being a southpaw, Eric being a southpaw, we would have had similar styles in the amateurs, and I can see a lot of the things that he's doing now that I also done, and what took me years to break out of, I can give it to him in one session, and hopefully he can work. And I'm seeing the improvements because he was. I'm seeing the improvements every day in the sparring. I don't want to reveal too much, but I'll say anything too negative about him. But what I identified when I watched his previous fights, I knew I could help him, and we've been steadily working on those. Just 2 or 3 little things. Not bombarding him with a million different things, because do too much and he'll never pick up. But just 1 or 2, maybe 3 different aspects of his fighting that he can improve on, and if you can just implement those things in the fight, they'll go a long way to helping him win.
So I'd be there working with Andy as a school day, and I'm in school today.
Swan first. Let your head out. You want 2? Step back. Small step back. Yes. Not big, tight.
Getting the blood flowing, juices are flowing. Mad to just let hands go and let rip Saturday night. Lightning, baby! El Pitbull's going to get met with lightning bolts.
Yeah, right. So Eric Donovan fights this Saturday night in the National Stadium. Tickets are still available for it, and I'm delighted to say he's here with us. How are you getting on?
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, getting on great.
John was just asking you there, it's what's it like to have somebody as honest as Andy? He's like, yeah, no, this, and this. They all need fixed.
Yeah. I suppose it's a good thing. He's not too critical. Like, he just he will highlight something and tell me about it, and more often than not, it makes sense. So he tells me how to adjust it, and yeah, it works well. It's kind of constructive, in a way, and it's very, very effective.
You're also at a stage of your career where somebody coming in and taking their time with you and kind of going, well, maybe I need to be gentle about this. Like, you can take it.
Yeah, I think you have to be open. You have to remain teachable, I suppose. Very, very important. But like, Andy's been there and he's done it, and he's worked with you know, Manuel Stewart and Adam Booth, and then his own experience being to the Olympics and operating at the highest level, and the type of opponents he would have boxed, and I suppose boxers that he would have been around in the gyms like Klitschko and Jermaine Taylor, and these lads on top of their game. So he's a wealth of knowledge, and I'm just privileged to be in a position to receive some of that. And he's a southpaw as well, so, and I'm a southpaw, so that kind of works really well. It's only been like 5-6 weeks now since we start working together, but I'm already noticing a huge difference.
What's the dynamic like? Is it you're good friends? Are you teacher-pupil, or is it a collaborative process?
Yeah, we've been good friends like for, what now, 15, 16 years, and we've always talked boxing, like shared our opinions and stuff like that, but this kind of relationship now is very professional. It's coach, boxer, we have the banter, we have the crack, and but he knows where I want to get to, and he's trying to help me to get there. And so it's strictly professional when we're in the gym, and I don't, I just follow his instructions, and that's it.
Yeah, like Andy's at that stage of his career where he might stop fighting. We don't know. He kind of still has in the back of his head that there's still one fight maybe out there that he would be tempted back for, and he's always talked about in dispatches whenever they're talking about what's next for the superstars in his division. But equally, he does have that wealth of information and knowledge, and you could see him just deciding, actually, maybe I want to impart some of this knowledge to people, and that's the next stage for him.
And that was a big worry for me as well when I contacted him. I felt like he's not ready to be a coach yet, but I was like, hope he says yes, you know. But he, because I knew he's a big name. He's a big name in boxing. He's still ranked by all the governing bodies, highly ranked, and there could well be a big fight on the horizon for him at any time. But I just got lucky that he found a gap where he could work with me, and I'd love for it to grow. But at the same time, I respect Andy's career and his choices, and I know there could well be a big fight for him. But I suppose on a more selfish personal level, I would love to continue to work, because I just notice how effective it's been for me, and just the little things that I'm learning all the time, the stuff that we're working on. It's just brilliant.
Yeah. If anybody has any comments, by the way, you can get them in on Periscope, on Facebook, or on Twitter, or on YouTube. Just leave a comment and we'll put it to Eric here at the minute. It's funny how we don't really understand those little things. We kind of assume that you've had so many fights and so many rounds of sparring, but like I remember talking to Andy about the Olympics, and he didn't have Zor in his corner, and he comes back from the Olympics and asks Zor what happened, and Zor just says one word to him, and it's like, oh, balls, you were totally right. You know, it's like that kind of, that intimate knowledge that you guys have of each other, of the technicalities of the sport, that really it's impossible to understand unless you've been in the ring, or unless you've spent hours and hours doing it.
It makes sense. Like, I remember Andy telling me that story as well. For me, a lot of my training would have been alone. My coach Dom would have overseen my sparring and stuff, but outside of that I would have been on my own, doing my running sessions, bag sessions and strength sessions and stuff like that. But you can't be inside the ring and outside the ring at the same time, and so really what I'm trying to say is you can't really be your own coach, you know what I mean? You need that different perspective. And the kind of stuff that we're working on now, because I've been an amateur for so long, there's a lot of amateur drills that are drilled home to me. Like Andy would often say to me that you're just too technical, you're so technical that, he wants to try and, he acknowledges that that's a strength to me, for me as well, but he wants to try and make me a raw pro in different aspects as well. Like, for instance, some areas he wants me to be able to fight when I need to fight. So we're working on those drills on the bags and stuff, where he tells me to street fight the bag. No headbutting now or anything like that. But like really let rip, let rip just for 10, 15 seconds, all out non-stop. Because like sometimes in a fight, you can go in with a tactic and a game plan, and it might not always go that way, and it's the same with any other sport. You can set up your formation or whatever and have that plan, but it might not go that way, and sometimes you just have to dig down to the soles of your boots and just come out swinging, that kind of way. So just little drills like that, and then on a more kind of a technical basis where he's trying to get me to remain calm, emotionally calm, under pressure in the pocket. Whereas an amateur, your job is to hit and not get hit. So you're always trying to get out there before the punch even lands, basically. But now he wants me to be able to sit in that danger zone and to feel comfortable and to be able to catch and fire, you know, these little things. Even
take a punch.
Yeah, catch and fire, block, and then come back with, you know, little tactics like that where I might be in the danger zone in the pocket and he wants me to stay there and be relaxed and not panic and try to get out. And
how do you practice that? Like what's the psychological aspect?
You have to go into that area. You have to invite your opponent to take you into that area. So if you're on the ropes, don't be in a rush to get out there. Don't be in a rush to jump back or run back to the space. Stay there. Be confident in your technique, or confident in your defense and your strength in your upper body movement, and welcome the onslaught of your opponent, and to remain calm. And funny enough, we tried this a few times, and when you change the kind of mental attitude a little bit, you can actually see the punches a lot more clear because you're not panicking anymore. You're not in a rush to get out. So that's quite good. I like that. Obviously, one of my biggest strengths is my footwork and my counter punching, but that's not going to serve you well. You got to have different aspects to your game that can serve you well too.
Now that you've had the 5 fights, what's the difference as each fight happens? Like, what are you learning from actually being in the experience of being in a professional fight? Like, so we kind of keep hearing about how fast people can improve and there's no substitute for minutes in the ring, like in an actual fight when somebody is trying to knock you out as opposed to inspiring. Like, is that true? Have you found that there is massive quantum leaps forward with these fights?
Yeah, I suppose with the amateur game, it's just completely skill, like so much skill. It's kind of changing now with because the scoring system the computer scoring system is gone, and it's more like professional scoring. So now they're looking for ring generalship and dominance and stuff like that.
Stuff they can cheat on.
Yeah, perhaps. But what I'm noticing is you can get a professional boxer who might not have much skill, and you could box the head off him for 3-4 rounds of an 8-round fight.
Yeah.
But then he'll come on strong in the 5th, 6th, and he'd be just like a total warhorse. You know what I mean? Who's just hands up, rugged, raw strength, and just coming and
like your last
down.
Fight. He came on strong.
See, he did come on strong, but I nullified him. I wasn't under any pressure. I controlled that fight well on. I was expecting him to come on a lot more stronger,
right,
in fact, and maybe that's why I didn't take him out, because I felt like he's a very, very wise pro, a veteran of the sport, and I thought he had a lot more in his locker. But that's why
didn't want to risk it.
I was trying to preserve a bit. Yeah, just make sure, do the simple things right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's about conditioning yourself for the longer rounds, and you don't have to beat your opponent for 3 minutes of every round. You know, sometimes it's the classier work, like 30 seconds, 20 seconds periods where you come on top and then go and take a little breeze, you know, but don't take any punishment, you know, and then go back in, do effective work again, move off again. A lot of very tactical, very, very tactical. Like, I wouldn't promote losing a round, but you know, in some cases as a professional, when you're in the longer rounds in big fights, you know, you might need to be able to tactically lose a round just to kind of preserve energy and stuff, and to come back strong again. You know, lose a round to win 2 or something like that. Yeah.
You said yesterday this is your toughest fight. Is that the way you're going into it?
I think so, because like as a pro, when you I take every fight, you know, on its merits, and I treat them all equally as important, you know, as each other. But this guy in particular is the first opponent I have with a winning record. So he's coming to win. He said he's coming to knock me out. So I'm looking forward to that. I like it. I like a challenge. I like feeling alive. I always feel alive, you know, when I'm going into the ring. But I like challenges that scare me a little bit, and because I know that gets me really up for it. And I'm kind of gone out of the journeyman mode now and into the kind of main business of professional boxing, where guys I'm looking at now have winning records, and moving up the ranks, and hopefully, like, I can get in. I need to have 8 fights before I can be officially ranked by the European body, governing body, and this will be 6, and I hope to have 8 done and dusted somewhere around next April. Then that would put me in the rankings. Depends on where they'll rank me. It could be in the top 10, top 15. And once you're there,
is that depending on who the caliber of fighter you fought?
Caliber of fighters,
performances in those fights?
more so caliber of fighters, their ranking points, what kind of ranking points they had before you went in. I mean, Di Davis had a good ranking points, that my last opponent, and so I would have got good ranking points from beating him. And I just I want to keep testing myself, and hopefully after those 8 fights I will be somewhere in around the top 10, 15, and maybe 2-3 fights more. I'd be knocking on the door hopefully for a European title.
Yeah, so maybe by the end of next year.
End of next year, yeah, would be ideal for me.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, about your motivation. The "I feel alive" comment. Like, is that, the titles are great, right? And obviously it's very important, and with that might come some extra financial bonuses, but like, you're not doing this bit to get rich at the moment, because it's a hard slog. So is it about feeling alive?
Yeah, I think it is. It's about, boxing has served me so well in my whole life. It's given me so many opportunities, and travel the world and represent my country, and other things as well that people don't hear. I get to go and speak to kids in schools, and I get to do some motivational speaking for companies and stuff like that. And so it's served me so well in that sense, and I see it as a gift. I see my boxing talent as a gift that I was given, and I'd like to honor that. And I don't think if I wasn't boxing, if I wasn't taking these risks, these big opportunities, and trying to go as far as I possibly can, I wouldn't be honouring that gift. So I think I have 2 or 3 years left.
There was a period in your life where you weren't honouring it, where you weren't doing enough.
Yeah. It's like, I suppose, like anything, you kind of go through. You kind of go through. You go through phases in life where you lose the love of a sport or whatever. People go through different phases through their own working careers, and it doesn't matter what you're in. So yeah, there was kind of parts throughout my career where I wasn't happy with how it went, but I feel I'm back in the driving seat now, and I can be happy with how it finishes.
That's the motivation part, where you can understand why you're doing things.
Yeah, the motivation is always the why. Yeah, I like. This might sound silly, but most of the time when I'm interviewed or introduced by media or whatever, I'm always introduced as the guy who trained alongside Katie Taylor, Michael Conlon, Paddy Barnes and stuff like that, and I understand that, because it's they're household names and they're Olympians and stuff, and I'm delighted for them. And I was delighted to be able to have the opportunity to commentate and be a pundit for them throughout the Olympic Games and stuff. But there's just a part of me that feels I've left something. I haven't fulfilled, There's something more that I have left to offer. There's something more that I have left to achieve. And that's what drives me. That's really what drives me to continue.
Do you feel alive at other points in the same way? Like, are there other, like, is there something else in your life that you're ever going to be able to do? Like,
I feel alive every day, Ger.
Because I was asking the 2 lads earlier, you brought it up, but I had actually asked the same question to Aidan O'Shea and Paul Flynn. It's like, it's the All-Ireland final, and all year long we're all waiting for that game to happen, and then it happens, and there's 10 minutes to go, and no one has a clue what's going to happen. And that must be one of the most thrilling moments to be, if you've any sense of self-awareness at that point, as opposed to just being in the moment. It's like, well, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, look, I can identify with those guys, and I'm sure they can identify with me. It's just when you go into that battle mode, and into that, game, the fight, whatever it is, it's just everything you've ever done, you trained, worked the sacrifices, the mental strength, the conversations you have with yourself, it's all coming now to this one big finale, you know what I mean? So like, that's how I look at each fight, like it's the finale, and you put so much effort in and so much commitment, you just want to deliver, and it just gets everything going, gets the whole system up and running, and I love that. That is a real thrill. It's something extraordinary. Your body is going to experience something very, very extraordinary, and I love it. But on the other hand, I'm very happy when I'm in the gym, coaching, doing fitness classes or boxing. I just love that area.
How do you find, you know, you're on quick turnarounds, you've fought a lot this year, and you know, if you stick to your plan, you'll fight a lot again next year.
Yeah.
Is it hard to keep peaking?
Not so much. I don't really feel too bad in terms of like the toll on the body and stuff. Like I feel pretty good.
You don't feel like you're miles on the clock at this stage?
No,
you feel fresh?
No, but I have to remember that I'm only kind of, most of my fights have been very, very short. 3 of them are knockouts.
Yeah.
I went 8 rounds once, and I did 4 rounds in my debut. The 3 in between have been knockouts.
The 8-round fight stood to you a lot?
It definitely stood to me. I was really happy and pleased that I was able to be up on my toes, bouncing around for 8 rounds. But each opponent's going to bring a different threat. So this next guy could be completely different than Dai Davies. Like, well, he is going to be, because he's a southpaw. Dai Davies was an orthodox boxer. So this guy is going to bring a different threat, and he has a big left hand, which is very dangerous. He swings it out, kind of a little bit unpredictable. Not the most technical boxer, but makes up for it in other areas. Like, you know, he has grit and strength, and you know, he was in with the European champion and went 9 rounds, and he was well in that fight, but he got stopped in the 9th round. He had some success. I watched it. And so that's the calibre of guys. He was in with John O'Carroll as well, who's a very good up-and-coming professional boxer from Ireland. He's doing really well. So he was in with him, and John O'Carroll beat him on points over 8 rounds. But again, he held his own at times. So it's a big fight, and one I'm really looking forward to.
It must be good. We've all heard Andy, you know, break down fighters and study them, and you know, talk on radio and TV about them. So it must be good to know he's in your corner breaking down this guy and figuring them out for you as well.
Yeah, it's class. Andy won't stop watching him, but I know Andy when he puts his heart in. You know,
he said that. He's like, I'm watching him more than Eric is.
Yeah. Oh, he is. Yeah.
2 of you are like, you stop watching. No, you watch him more.
I try not to watch too much. I watch a little bit and just take a little bit from. I find when you watch someone too much, you can kind of maybe overemphasize their strengths or something.
It's kind of the coach's job anyway.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So Andy's watching away, and
what do you think of him as a coach? You know,
I think
he said yesterday he didn't really know if it was for him, and I just wonder if that's because, you know, he's still a fighter at heart, or you know, the idea that he's not going to be available to boxers or to Irish boxers as a coach in the future is scary. You know, we've got very few guys like him.
Yeah, I think he's brilliant, and I'm not being biased, but I've always thought he was a brilliant boxing analyst and pundit himself, and how he breaks it down makes so much sense. It's a great way of conveying that information to you, and but also he's a good demonstrator too. So like, he will demonstrate stuff in the gym, and he will say like, this is why you should do this, and this is why you should do that, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah. You're doing the same though. Like, I think your generation of boxers, the ones who went through the high performance, are going to be the ones that have to drive the engine, like, because we haven't always had the follow on from the top level coaching down into the clubs, but now there's loads of people who've come through the high performance unit who have a profile, who are drawing kids to the boxing club, and I think it kind of starts to see it out that way. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of boxers that came through that high performance program. They should all be working in some sort of development role, provincial or county development officers or something. If they were interested in it and there was funding there for it, then we'd see a different story. You think you're having success in Irish boxing now, if those type of boxers that came through the high performance unit were, let's say we had 1 or 2 in each county, Ireland would be one of the powerhouses of the world.
You were so well coached technically that you have that basic knowledge to start with, to pass it on. To pass on.
Yeah, it's important though. It's important to kind of, you know, the old saying, practice makes perfect, is not true. You got a lot of guys practicing an imperfect way for 7, 8, 9 years before they go on to high performance, and then they're in bad habits. Perfect practice makes perfect. So you gotta intervene at an early age, and to be able to kind of put the fundamentals in place early and get them developing properly from the start. And that's why we see Russia, Cuba, all so good. They go over that over and over and over, the basic fundamentals, and they're in good habits and good techniques on the way through.
Kenny Egan's been in touch to say, boom, great corner man in the last fight. You'd Kenny Egan in your corner the last fight.
Kenny's also great to have him in the corner last time as well. Very knowledgeable guy, worked at the highest level as well and competed at the highest level. So, and I still get some advice as well from Ken as we go along.
Andy's a great addition to the footlong camp. Eric on the rise, footlong standing tall, he says at the end of this.
I don't know what he's up to there. He's too much time on his hands.
He does. Thanks for getting in touch, Kenny. And Willie Casey on Facebook says, up the lilies. If people do want tickets, it's this Saturday night. And obviously you're making yourself available to the media a couple of days out. We really appreciate that, because I'm sure you're hungry and you're a bit ready to go.
Yeah, a bit tired, and I'm kind of like chomping at the bit as well. Fight week can be hard because, okay, let's just kind of go back to before fight week. Before fight week and your training camp, you kind of have 2 sessions a day, 2 hard sessions a day, and then you have food sessions, as Sir Auntie often calls them, food session. So, you know, in fight week, you're bringing it down to 1 session a day, and then the food sessions will be narrowing as well. And so you have so much time on your hands, and you're just playing the waiting game. I was jumping out of my skin there yesterday because I put on the my entrance song in the car, and I was just driving along in the car, and I was just jumping out of my skin, and I was just like, you know, I was just feeling it, the anticipation. I had to say, wind down, Eric, wind down. You'll get your time, you'll get your days coming, you know. But yeah, that's it. It's just about holding it now and wait for Saturday night, the final bell.
So if anybody does want tickets, they can get them on the night at the National Stadium, but in the meantime?
Yeah, you can pay when you go in, but obviously I'd prefer if you could get in touch with me. I'm allocated tickets for each fight, and because I don't have a big TV promoter or anything behind me, I have to sell my own tickets, and I've been meeting a lot of fans over the last few weeks. Funny enough, my training schedule has been, and my ticket drops have been planned equally as meticulous, and but it's good, it's special that you can have that intimate moment with your fans and just sit down, have a coffee, have a chat and all. I don't know any other professional sport that has to do that, or a professional athlete that has to do that, but I kind of enjoy it. But at the same time, it can be time consuming.
Yeah.
But
when you get super big, there'll be somebody to do that for you.
Well, please God, yeah. But yeah, get in touch through social media, and I can arrange to have tickets delivered to you. Yeah.
So search Eric Donovan on Facebook or on Twitter,
or the Healthy Living Shop in Athy. They distribute tickets. So,
all right, good stuff. Best of luck.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming in. Really do appreciate it this week of all weeks. Now, going to play out with some John Fogarty, the Leinster scrum coach, talking with Oisín about the challenges of rolling from the November internationals into the Champions Cup action.
Is it a disadvantage when, and you want to rest the lads, you want them to be okay, but is it a disadvantage then when you get to the Exeter game that you haven't been maybe able to play the team together or go through things that you want to do in a game situation?
It's kind of the nature of things in Leinster. You know, you want to build cohesion, and it's so important. With the November and the Six Nations, you get some players that aren't here, and you usually get a half a game or no game to get them back in. The thing is that at this stage now, a lot of those players are quite used to it, and they tend to come back and fit into the system quite well. Another thing we're doing as coaches is we're trying to stay in contact with them while they're in camp, and keeping them abreast of what's happening here. And when they're back, I mean, the majority of those internationals are back in today, and we'll go over what we've done over the last couple of weeks, and mentally they'll be up to speed. But physically, like you said, that cohesion is very, very important. It's something that we've learned to work with and deal with.
Talk to me about the game against Treviso.
Yeah, and Treviso have gone so well. So you watch Treviso over this season. Defensively, their system, they're all buying into a slightly different system. They're not committing too many numbers to the ball on the ground. They've got a tackler +1 involved in everything, and they're very active. They're big, and then they're covering quite a bit of pitch. So their system straight away is a little bit different, and they've conceded less tries as a result. So they're hard to crack. They work incredibly hard for each other. They're a nice, tight, cohesive unit. So again, that makes things very difficult. And you think about Exeter, who are very, very good defensively, and they work very, very hard for each other. There's good spirit in the team. In attack, then Treviso are big men. Their attacking shape looks good. With McGinley, he can use his foot to expose you on the outside with kicks, and he's a good distributor. And their shape in their forwards, and they can play out of those shapes. They've done that quite well. And like I said, they're good. They're good players. They're hardened players.
All right, that's pretty much all we've got time for. John Greene of the Sunday Independent, thanks very much. What major exclusive have you got coming up for us on Sunday?
I'll tell you on Sunday.
Coming up tonight on the radio show, Wednesday Night Rugby and everything else that you'd expect between 7 and 10. If you missed any of the show today, you can get us on facebook.com. Make sure you turn on your notifications on Twitter, so anytime we go live, you'll get told about it. You can do the same on Facebook and YouTube as well. Thanks very much. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.